Welcome back to episode 2 of Building Studio No Code. It's been a couple weeks since our last episode, and we have learned a ton. Too much. It has been like drinking from the fire hose, good and bad. We've learned a lot about our business model, what's good about it, what's bad about it. We've learned a lot about delivering MVPs. We're currently delivering 2. How much work is involved in those?
Woof. Okay. Recording this first official app live signed off MVP delivered. Congrats. We did it. Oh man. That was a big app. That was big. I think we made some mistakes. We learned some lessons.
We've learned about setting expectations and have been trying to learn how to put our foot down or no, not put our foot down of when we need to start charging more and or not charging more. We've learned a ton. So let's get through as much as we possibly can in this episode. You'll be hearing from David and I, a conversation from us about what we see our business going, the future of it, what we want, and more in this episode. So first up, the waterfall effect of adding more functionality. We have one client who is building a very complex two-sided ordering marketplace. Now, as a newer agency, we knew that this app was going to be more intense and we probably wouldn't make a lot of money with it because of all the functionality it needed. And, as bubble devs, no-code devs, we're like, okay, well, it'll just take us an hour extra to build it, right? And you keep making those decisions. It's going to take 30 minutes more, 10 minutes more, 30 minutes more. And you're building, you're building, you're building. And you end up with a really big, complex application. And that's cool because that's a big, complex application built on Bubble, no problem. But where it gets hard and where there's a lot more difficulties than you might not have had imagined is when you go to deliver that application, QA that application, serve all that additional functionality, make sure that it's up to your standards and every screen size and every different possible scenario. That's where it's just going to take 30 minutes to build, no worries. Things stack on top of each other and makes delivering your application on time and on budget so much more complex.
I think in smaller apps, especially like CRUD based apps, create, read, update, delete apps, where it's mostly like creating things in the database and seeing them somewhere else. It's a little easier to test things. But in a marketplace, especially a three-sided marketplace where we have an admin and approvals and a lot of things happening independently, testing is a beast. And thankfully, our client had been really willing to help and jump in and test with us or test for us, really, and run through all of these scenarios.
And so that waterfall effect of saying yes, saying yes, saying yes, and not realizing what that also comes with on the back end has been a painful thing for us to learn when building this on a fixed rate budget that we have been doing with our MVPs.
We didn't do a great job communicating throughout that build process. It was kind of like heads down grind mode. Just get it done, just get it done. Um, I think we didn't want to deliver the bad news that we were falling behind, and instead we just put more hours in. Lots of 12 plus hour days trying to get things out, working on the weekends. Um, I didn't want to say how things were going until we knew how things were going. And it was very tough to see, tough to estimate like when we actually thought things would get done.
I think especially during those final stretches, that final stages of preparing for delivering, that's when you need to have even more communication than less communication to ensure that you and your client are aligned and are ready to bring this app into the production, the live environment, meaning you need to align on, hey, we're going to deliver the app on this date. Can you set aside time for this next week, an hour or 2 hours a day, to help us with the QA, to submit feedback, to do whatever you need to do to get it to a live state? That's something that we didn't do well enough on our first app. I think on the second app, it was a little bit better and we'll continue to improve. But the first app, we were just cramming to get as much done as possible because it was such a big thing. And then we finally got to the delivery day and be like, here you go. And the client was like, great, what do I do with this now? Or it's like, oh, we need more time from you. And we never communicated that properly. And there was frustration there, understandably so, right? And so when you're approaching these dates, or just generally you're working with a client, the communication between the two are so important, and you need to make sure that, especially as you work towards the delivery day and what's to come, that you're laying a clear foundation and communication of, here's what's happening, here's what you should expect, here's the time you should set aside, and if we deliver or do it sooner than that, even better. But here is, what we should expect going forward. And so that was the thing that we dropped the ball on. We could have communicated better, and next time we will, and already have been. But as you guys are working towards servicing your clients as well, make sure you're communicating, top notch along the way. And as for us, it's hard to communicate when you're building so much. And so we're actually bringing in a PM to our team to help us with this, to make sure we just don't drop the ball on it again. We're also experiencing, when does the fixed price end and when does the hourly begin, right? Because when we go to deliver this app, we're delivering this app, and to our standards, we're making sure everything works. But then it gets into a situation of, well, is this gonna, if we go to cover this and fix this, is that the fixed rate? Is that already covered? Or is that, no, the additional hourly? And when are we starting that? And that creates additional tension in the relationship, in an early stage relationship, that I don't think you really need, and is not healthy. And if you were just to start with an hourly based rate, that tension would be avoided from the very beginning, right? And also the tension of working more for less would also be avoided, because you're working for each, hour that you're getting billed for. So it all brings us back to the whole make money per hour traditional service agency model, that it's not sexy. It's not something you want as a headline on your company, but it's just the thing that I feel like is going to position us long term for success, to avoid burnout, to avoid client frustrations, to ensure success across the board. I think that's just where we got to land. And I think this last 2 to 3 weeks of building Studio No Code has really shown us that, has shown us what could be stressed in delivering these MVPs, especially as quickly as we are. And what are the good things of it? What is the valuable things? What are we going to take to now improve our structure, right? And so, David and I, we had this great conversation.
We'll build you something that we don't yet know what it is, right? And so it sounds like a good idea, but I don't think it plays out well, as we're seeing.
I keep coming back to the spreadsheet that you put together the other day. Essentially, like the P&L, how many hours we're actually putting into this, how much we want to make per hour, and then what we're actually getting back, right? And then as we think about scaling this, how do we actually bring on more people and reach bigger goals, but also achieve those fundamental P&Ls that we want to get? And everything comes back to hourly. It really does. And I just don't think you can avoid it, because if you're not paying by the hour, then eventually you're most likely going to be working more hours and be making less for that. And then that leads to all the things I kind of previously said. So it's like, I think there's a reason why every agency in the world mostly pays by the hour, except for the new productized agencies that, that we're kind of experimented with and design stuff and whatnot.
Well, there are certain productized services that do make sense. Like, hey, I'll build you a landing page in 4 weeks for $20K.
Yeah.
But also a lot of the time agencies, and I've been doing some research and talking to some folks, like agencies will hire people full time. And then it's about how much juice can you squeeze out of that fruit, right? And so, yeah, you're paying them $100,000, but you're trying to get 60 or 70 hours a week out of them. So their hourly drops in half. And that's how they're making the money, because they're charging the full hourly to
you don't want to do that.
They're trying to get twice as much work. And agencies are notoriously raised within margins, because you have overage, you have spillage, you have, people that don't pay.
Yeah, I think also cutting into the margins is the overages, right? Like, and if you're not actually charging for the overages, your small margin already becomes even smaller.
Yeah.
And that's not what I want to do either. Like, personally thinking, like, my time is my most valuable asset, as is yours, right? And there's a lot of ways that we can make money for our time. And I don't want to get into a situation where we undercut a project on a fixed rate and then we don't actually, when there's no upside to it, right? Because we're not getting equity, we're not getting anything part of that. We're just working more for less at that time, which kind of leads to a potential subpar quality back to the client, which then also makes them happy, right? So
Yeah.
I just don't see how not charging an hourly rate for the long term is kind of what we need to do in order to keep the margins that we want to keep for this business, keep charging what we want to charge for this business, but also keep quality high to make sure that our values or what we're looking for aligns with, kind of everything across the way. Because
Yeah.
like we, for some of these clients, have provided exceptional service, gone above and beyond trainings, what you've done so far with Homemade, but we haven't been paid anything for that. And like normally that would be like a $500 thing, right? And it's just like
for
that
sure.
we're adding into it. And so I want to be able to do that stuff, but when we're not actually being paid to do anything above that, it gets really hard to be able to want to do that,
Yeah. And right now the stakes are low. Like think about when the hourly work that I've been doing to help is actually money we have to pay somebody else.
Somebody else.
We would have each put all of the money back in.
Yeah. We would have taken the money, put it back in, and then maybe even paid our own money to do that.
Just to pay
right?
this other person.
Yeah.
Now we've done all this work for less.
And I think luckily we're good guys, so we're not like for this one project we're not doing that, but it then would lead to the point of like we can't literally do this anymore because and we got to tell the client, hey, we can't do your project anymore because it's costing over. And then they don't want to be in that situation either. So that creates another potential hardship of, well, you gave me this fixed fee, we saw that it went twice over it, we've assumed as much as we can, but we can't assume anymore, we have to raise the prices. But then mid and then it's like you're getting back to this shitty agency thing where like
the thing I was always nervous about.
Go
ahead, sorry.
When I was first getting started, I was looking for a developer to hire, and I don't think the process was perfect, but he gave me a quote and he's like, here's my low, medium, and high. I don't know where we're gonna land, but here's my hourly. And he sent me an invoice for all the hours worked. I think it was like every other week, and I paid that invoice. And eventually it got more and more because it's an ever-changing thing, et cetera, right? But I think that was a good way to approach it in terms of like, hey, this is all in the client. This is in your hands. Whatever we work on, it's because of what you want, right? Now, there's a good chance that this just comes together well and we get the low, but there's also a good chance that it could be here, right? And we're going to do everything we can to get you there, but this is kind of what you should expect going into this process for a first time.
Yeah, I think that's a good process we can absolutely try. It's just such a hard business.
A hard business.
I think it also involves getting more people involved in the studio. Having a service agreement that we bill our hourly at like $125, $150 an hour doesn't always make sense if the client just needs an email changed or email text updated right now, right? But if we were able to, but that's just what it is because that's what David and I cost, right? That's the premier talent that we provide, but that's not always needed. So if we are able to open up our service offering to something along the lines of an agency trainee, people that we take in, developers that we find
really good devs. First off, find really good devs that want to be the best devs. So find really good devs that have the availability, communication, the things that we think that we could mold them into being someone like us, right? Find those devs, pay them and a decent hourly, not huge, not low, but especially as they're just starting off, a decent hourly, get them trained on all of my courses because that's essentially kind of how we're building these apps. So it's an async way for them to get up to speed with, how we're building our workflows, our databases, et cetera. And you and I haven't fully synced on that yet. We still need to do that ourselves because that's my way, not your way. So there's still a combined way that we need to learn. But because that's already built, that's async, they can get up. It's easy for them to get going, right? So take those, pass those courses, and that's just the baseline of, okay, now you kind of know how we work. And then let's kind of build out the structure and kind of block step by step it along together.
Yeah, and make sure that we maintain that quality.
I think that would then allow us to charge a lower hourly to service our clients for more affordable while still ensuring the level that David and I provide, that professionalism, that talent along the way, because it's supervision. We're building it. We're structuring the build. We're advising every step of the way, but we're not actually doing the every minute building. I think that also will allow us to be more beneficial across the board. It will allow David and I to get more of a fair wage that we want per the hours that we spend. It will allow the client to spend less overall. And then it will use our expertise in building large scale apps and to structure them the right way, to build them the right way, all that kind of stuff. We'll strategize that way. But the actual mundane, busy work of that will be done by trainees. And also servicing will be done by trainees, unless they need some kind of tier 2 support, partner support, where David and I come in. That starts to feel a lot better.
I think you start with just 1 or 2 trainees, and that it may be 2, because if one fails or drops out, you don't lose all that time on that one person, right? And you can train 2 together, and they kind of tackle one MVP together in a way, with Harrison PMing, and we break it down the Jira. We really go agile with this. But then there's also, teaching hours from me and you of certain aspects of, so you and I could supervise each certain aspects of the build, and kind of use those to, go in and teach those areas.
That starts to feel like a system that we could scale and grow with. And so these last 2 to 3 weeks have been really paramount for us. It's been a learning experience. It's been drinking for the fire hose, and it's helped us figure out what we want and we don't want.
We're lucky because we're in the best position to do something like this, given the community that we already have, the content we already have, that we're both already bubble educators and bootcamp instructors. It's just a different thing is like, do we want to go that route? Like that, then it really becomes like, what do we want out of the agency, and what route do we want to go on? And I'll kind of start with like what I would like to do. And so I think in 6 to 12 months from now, I'm more of the studio head rather than the daily builder, right? I don't want to sell myself as a service for every hour of the day, right? I want to build systems and goods that could be sold 24/7. And I think that starts with me not being a builder 24/7, right? If I can educate, if I can bring in sales, if I can build processes, and I can, bring it all together, that's where I think I'd want to be as part of this agency partner in the next 6 to 12 months, right? And maybe there was a MVP that I want to build myself or build, and I'll just go and do it that one. But I'd like to have the choice, so then I can still be open to all of my other endeavors, my content, my courses, all that other stuff as well. And I'm not just, laboring for the 40 hours a week. What about you?
I'd say I'd rather do the same. I don't want to be a dev for 40 hours a week. I'd rather be the sledgehammer that comes in at the end when something can't work and help you figure it out. Setting up a process, setting up examples of things for people to follow, I think makes sense. And having people actually doing the work, devs that we're teaching and training and coaching. I'd rather, like, if I had a magic wand, I'd rather be selling SaaS products and, things that just make money all when we're not working. That's obviously the dream.
I would like that too.
I think 6 months is a little aggressive. Like, not aggressive. I think
so too.
6 months, maybe a year to 18 months will be out of the daily build. There's just we just don't have the consistency yet to know. So we just need a little bit more time to do that.
I'm fully aligned with you.
And I think that's really important in your journey. You always need to be checking in and saying, how did this go? How can we improve? Where do we want to go? What does that next 6 to 12 months look like? And in the case for David and I with Studio NoCode, I think we identified that. But I think you also need to go through that process in order to identify that. And in this case, that's what we're doing. And it's part of it, and it's healthy, and I'm thankful for that. So, as always, I want to leave this video with a goal of our own. Right now, it's September. We are entering Q4, right? And my goal for Q4 would be to hire a PM and get 5 trainees through our agency and deliver 6 MVPs by the end of the year. I think that's where we're going. I think that's the goal. Hold me to it. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next episode.